Alright guys, so today I'm going to do something that I've been wanting to do on the channel for a while now, and that very thing is hardware reviews. I have a few pieces of hardware that I would like to review, but today I would like to review the Asus G15 Strix Advantage Edition from 2021. Alright, so yes, this machine is a couple years old now, but I think it is still the best contender for a laptop in 2023 when it comes to Linux gaming. I've been dailying this for about a year now using Arch Linux, and I can say without a doubt that the experience has been nothing but abysmal. Great. So first things first, the machine is badged with the AMD Advantage label, which basically means that it has both an AMD CPU plus GPU. The AMD Advantage, so to speak, comes from the implementation of AMD Smart Shift, which is a mechanism which works from boosting between the CPU and GPU in order to allocate resources in the best way for a given task, whether it be CPU intensive, GPU, or both. This is all UEFI level, by the way. You don't have to worry about not making use of this without some special drivers like NVIDIA's Dynamic Boost, which has been unimplemented properly on Linux for years now. First they added Comet Lake support a couple years back, and then finally a couple years later, they finally added support for Ryzen CPUs that came out in 2022, but even with the Comet Lake support, you would often not get to use your full GPU power budget depending on what model GPU you had. I'm happy to say that this was never the case with Smart Shift, as it has worked since day one on Linux. Before we go on further with the review, let's go over the specs. There are 4 options for this machine that you can get. You have 2 CPU and display options. You can either get the 5900HX or the more powerful 5980HX. And you have the choice of either an insanely fast 300Hz Full HD display or a more crisp Quad HD display at the cost of a lower refresh rate being 165Hz. I used to say that we would never need anything above 60Hz on display, but having got used to 165Hz, I couldn't see myself going back, and honestly 300Hz I think would be way too much for me. Not to mention that I would want to upgrade the panel I use for my desktop at the moment, and I would rather focus more on picture quality in relation to resolution and color, so I opted for the 165Hz Quad HD display, and I opted for the more powerful 5980HX. Out of the box, it comes with either choice of CPU and display, 16 gigs of RAM, which will be a big talking point in a minute, and a 6800M, which is a dedicated graphics card that is about equivalent in power to a desktop 6700 XT, and actually uses the same chip. Unfortunately, the laptop doesn't come with a mux switch, but if you really need to eke out the extra 6%, then you can plug the laptop into an external display using the display port Type-C, which is wired directly to the dedicated graphics card. The battery life is decent, about what you would expect on a machine like this. You will typically get about 4.5 hours on battery life just browsing the internet, though I'm sure I could tweak this more to get a higher uptime. The power brick is enormous at 280 watts. It is quite a chunker, though I don't like how the power cable is right in the middle and straight out. It makes it a bit inconvenient to try and travel with it properly in a bag, and I worry about potentially harming the cable by it sitting weird, although it works fine and looks visually the same as I got it. But it does use a standard 240 cable, which means that if you ever need to replace it, you could rarely just go to pretty much any store that sells these, and they're pretty much all over the place. The machine has some pretty nice upgradeability, although standard for a gaming laptop, to be quite frank. It comes with a 500GB NVMe out of the box, but you can put in 2 NVMe drives, upgrade the Wi-Fi card, which works fine for me, and upgrade both RAM sticks. It is a MediaTek Wi-Fi card. Some people said that they've had issues with it. I have yet to have any issues with it, but currently I have 2 drives for a total of 3 terabytes here, and 32 gigs of RAM, which I upgraded for a very particular reason. The RAM that this laptop comes with should be expected to be replaced, as they use very cheap RAM. 1 rank, 16 chip density. Why, Asus, did you cheap out in this area of all places? Out of the box, this takes away as much as 20% of the machine's performance, which is terrible, considering the few choices for AMD Advantage machines there are out there. It really puts a bad name on AMD Advantage machines, because I really like these. I recommend grabbing a Crucial replacement, but not directly from Crucial, which includes getting it from Amazon, as you are likely to still get a kit of single rank RAM. Go on eBay and buy a 2 rank X8 density chip kit of Crucial RAM from a seller that is confirmed selling those. Believe me, it is worth the extra few dollars as we want to squeeze every last bit of performance as we can, because you gotta remember this is a laptop that went for an MSRP of $1,600. With a new kit of RAM inside, we essentially get up to 20% more performance. Unfortunate that we had to spend more after buying the machine. Now for the exterior of the machine. This laptop is a mix between premium yet rugged feeling plastic in a good way, and magnesium alloy. It is a very premium feeling laptop, but I will warn that it is a fingerprint magnet. The keyboard is your standard RGB keyboard with 4 zones, although I suspect you could get the full RGB keyboard out of another G15 Strix model and swap it out. I just keep it on red. There is a removable armor cap here if you don't like the standard red, with a silver option and a clear option. The silver option feels somewhat cheap in quality though, and I would recommend either sticking with the red or going with the clear. I have not been able to find any other colors for sale, but there is files that Asus provides for you to be able to print your own out if you have a 3D printer. Within Linux, this machine feels right at home. Thanks to the guys over at asus-linux.org, all of the features pertaining to the laptop are accessible right here on Linux, from graphics switching via Super Graphics Control to fan control and RGB control via ASUS Control and ROG Control Center, which is honestly better than Armory Crate, which really isn't saying much because that software is notoriously bad. Overclocking can be supplemented with Core Control, which is the AMD power solution on Linux, and even things like setting the max battery charge are all accessible with Asus Control and can all be set with the GUI front end, which is ROG Control Center. I chose this machine because I wanted an upgrade from my previous daily laptop, the Zephyrus G15 with a 3060, which I will review in another video as it is also a great machine. I specifically wanted to put an emphasis on having a laptop with AMD dedicated graphics so as to avoid the headache of AMD plus NVIDIA graphics on mobile machines when it comes to Linux. Plus, my experience with AMD for the past decade has been much better on Linux than it has with NVIDIA. Most applications that require a dedicated graphics card just work right out of the box. Steam games, wine games, Kdenlive, they all immediately used a dedicated graphics card unless specified otherwise. Now with the general review out of the way, on to the benchmarks. Alright, starting out with Minecraft, with no shaders, we're getting on average about 350 to 450 FPS. And on to Minecraft Sonic Ether's unbelievable shaders. With Iris installed, we get above the VSync rate, our panel's display rate. Onto Resident Evil 4 Remake, we get an impressive 70 FPS average, sometimes a little above, a little bit below. Onto Dead Space Remake, we are getting about the same, about 70, sometimes above, sometimes a little bit below. Now we are on Dark Tide. Usually I get about 90 to 100 FPS with FSR on Ultra Quality, which is pretty good. And onto Horizon Zero Dawn finally. On the benchmark, we are getting about 80 FPS on average. As you can see, this is quite a capable machine that can be acquired for very cheap. I got mine on sale from Best Buy for only $1,100, and you can still buy this exact model. I recommend waiting for a sale as they happen very frequently. Even if you are a fan of NVIDIA over AMD, this machine is nothing to scoff at and will get the job done. I bring it to LAN parties when I play with my buddies, and it feels right at home in the office as well. Thanks for watching my review. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Check out my other videos on Linux and Linux gaming, and I will see you in the next one.